Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Somebody needs to take care of it.
Welcome to our meeting. I'm doing the chairman's duties so that our chairperson is here. And we're glad she's back. I'd like to mention that thinking of the last meeting where there was things got a little bit heated at times, and there was blood on the floor after the meeting, and it was I would like to, I know that probably everybody here knows you should go through the chairperson when you speak, and as for the hostility that's expressed or was expressed at that meeting, I hope that people can put that aside for our time here at these meetings, and try to be pleasant and don't get nasty. Anyway.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the record, Colleen Ford just like before you called and said she couldn't be here, she's sick and couldn't be here.
The first item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of October 19th.
I would request that we put that off to the next meeting. I haven't had a chance to review them.
Okay.
No objection.
Great.
Thank you.
Second item on the agenda is the audit review. Casey?
Good evening. We recently finished the audit up. We were actually here in September doing our field work. We come here for around a week. And then we wrap things up in October, and here we are in November presenting the result of the audit, which went very well, as they usually do. The town received an unqualified or clean opinion on its financial statements, which means they're fairly stated in accordance with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. That's a very good thing. I want to thank Kurt and Laurie and Mary and all those that get involved in the audit process. It's always a pleasure working with them. I've been doing this audit for many years now, and it's one of my favorite audits. Everyone's very nice. It's a good working atmosphere. So I put together a set of graphs, which I usually do. I'm going to go through. I do want to remind you that your real true source document are those financial statements. We put these together to have a discussion, to look at the year-end balances. But again, when you want to refer back to the actual finances for the town, please look at the financial statements as opposed to the graphs. And I'm primarily going to focus on the town's general fund, which is the largest and probably most important fund for the town. It's where the majority of the operations for the town are recognized. I do have that.
Oh, it doesn't seem to have. Unless I have two.
What was this?
So as I said, I'm going to focus on the general fund. And as I go through these, if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to stop me. The first graph shows general fund assets for the general fund. And there are a few comments here. I'm going to go through these. The 2011 cash balance decreased by approximately $89,000 to equal $1,316,000 at June 30th, 2011. Accounts receivables, which increased by $17,000, changed as a result of the timing of receipts at the end of the year. And outstanding taxes and liens decreased by approximately $68,000. And that's consistent with the increase in the property tax collection rate. That rate increased from 90.31% in 2010 to 92.24% in 2011. There's another graph that goes into a little bit more detail as we go along. The next graph shows general fund liabilities, accounts payable, which decreased by $33,000, and accrued wages, which increased by $2,000, both changed as a result of the timing of payments at year end. Accrued wages represents payroll earned in June but paid in July, so that's a liability for the town. Deferred revenue, which increased by $26,000, mostly represents taxes still paid 60 days after the end of the year, or August 31st. And that's not recognized as revenue, and that's per GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles. And the payable to RSU2 for June 30th, 2009 accrued payroll represents prior year accrued summer salaries for teachers paid by RSU2 on the town's behalf. And so that is a liability to the town. As you can see, that balance decreased from 2010 to 2011 by $128,000, and that was due to a scheduled payment. I believe there's a repayment plan of 5 years.
So that should decrease by about that much every year.
Exactly. Any questions on liabilities? The next graph shows general fund equity. So if you take your assets less your liabilities, what you're left with is the equity balance for the town, or fund balance. And there are two different categories here. There's assigned fund balance and unassigned fund balance. Assigned fund balance, which increased by $8,000, changes annually based on the status of projects and appropriations. And you can see the detail of what makes that up on page 28 of the financial statements. And unassigned fund balance, which is what remains after any amounts designated as assigned, increased by $97,000 from 2010 to 2011. You will notice that these terms have actually changed from last year. The town implemented a new accounting standard, and so we went from what was called designated fund balance, the amounts that have been set aside by the town, to now assigned fund balance. And we used to have undesignated fund balance, now we have unassigned fund balance, so somewhat of a change.
Was that due to a recommendation that?
No, it was a change in standards. It was a governmental accounting standard board pronouncement, so it wasn't just the town, it was essentially all governmental entities had to make these changes, so. The next graph shows general fund revenues. This is a budget to actual comparison. There are a few of these that I want to talk about. Tax revenues were under budget by $42,000, mostly due to the change in deferred taxes, which increased by $31,000.
Excuse me, where's that graph?
Page 5.
I don't see the graph, so. Page 5 doesn't appear to have the graph.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm referring generally to as a graph, but
Okay.
yeah, there isn't a squiggly line. Intergovernmental revenues were under budget by $7,200, primarily due to lower than expected homestead exemption revenues. And interest earned was under budget by $10,500 due to lower than expected rates of returns on investments. Obviously, the stock market's been pretty poor over the last few years, and you're seeing that result here. Any questions on that? The next page shows general fund expenditures. This is also a budget actual comparison. General administration expenditures were under budget by $115,000, mostly due to lower than expected overlay and abatements. Protection expenditures were under budget by $23,000 due to lower than expected police and dog control expenditures. Public works expenditures were under budget by $141,000, primarily due to lower than expected repairs and maintenance, salt costs, and tipping fees. And capital expenditures were under budget by $190,000 due to the budget of multi-year projects which weren't completed in the current year. Most notably, this related to fire equipment. I think there was approximately a swing of $114,000. And the intent is that that amount will be assigned in fund balance, and those expenditures will be incurred in future years. It's just that, for whatever reason, the town didn't spend the money this year, so there's an expectation that it'll be spent in future years. Any questions on that page? The next graph shows property tax collection rates over the past 8 years. The tax collection rate increased by approximately 2% to equal 92.24% at June 30th, 2011. Now, if you look at this over this 8-year period, you can see quite the trend from 2006 to 2010. Almost a 5% decrease. We went from 95% down to 90%. And so things have rebounded pretty good in 2011, back up to 92%. So that's certainly a good thing. The next graph shows property tax rates over the past 10 years. The $12.85 decrease in the 2008 property tax rate was due to a full revaluation performed by the town in that year. The 2011 tax rate equaled $12.55 per $1,000 in assessed value.
On that graph, should they, here's 2010 twice, should it be 2000?
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, it should be, that actually is 2011. The next graph shows a general fund balance analysis from 2007 to 2011. So this is another graphical representation of fund balance. From this, we can see that the total fund balance, which equaled $1,079,000, increased by 105 or 11% from the prior year balance. This is somewhat consistent with most of my clients. Most of my clients in the last few years have consumed a lot of their fund balance because times were tough. Most communities don't want to raise their taxes when the economy is poor. So we've certainly seen situations where fund balance has gone down. It's nice to see that things have rebounded in 2011. The next graph shows unassigned fund balance as a percentage of budget. This is one of those metrics that we often look at to try and determine whether or not a community is financially healthy. It's one of those metrics that rating agencies will often look at when they're doing bond rating. From this, you can see that that percentage increased from 11.44% to 11.82%. And generally, as a firm, we recommend 1 to 2 months worth of expenditures, and that equals 8.3 to 16.7%. So at 11.82%, the town is in that range. Any questions on that? The next graph shows unassigned fund balance as a percentage of budget as compared to other local communities. And this is for 2009 and 2010. Unfortunately, the balances for these other communities weren't available, so we're looking at 2010 balances. And as you can see, at 11.44%, Monmouth had the second highest percentage. And then the last graph shows pie charts for general fund revenues and expenditures. When you're looking at the revenues, you can see the three largest revenue sources were taxes at 83%, intergovernmental revenues at 13%, and licenses and permits at 2%. When I say taxes, I'm talking primarily about property taxes. There's also excise taxes in there. And when I'm talking about intergovernmental revenues, that is, it's kind of a hodgepodge. The big ones that were in there this year, there was a $442,000 CDBG grant that the town received. There's also state revenue sharing that's in there, just to give you somewhat of a flavor. In terms of expenditures, the three largest categories were education at 46%, as well as public works and general administration, and those were both at 12%. Any questions on any of the graphs?
Well, I'd like to ask you about page 5.
Sure.
You're saying that we, on the top half of this, you're saying that we had budgeted 6.677 and we took in 6.614, so we actually anticipated receiving $63,000 more in revenue than we received.
That's correct.
When we fixed the budget.
That's correct.
Now, what's the bottom half of this mean?
The transfers, I mean, there's not a lot going on there, but the utilization of prior year surplus, the town chose to consume a portion of its fund balance, what it already had essentially in the bank, to balance its budget. So there's not an actual revenue source. There's not an outside, entity that's cutting you a check for $50,000 and you're using your own money to balance the budget. That's why you're seeing that $50,000 variance.
Okay.
Same thing with carry forwards. You're choosing, most of those are capital related items. You're choosing to use a portion of your fund balance to set aside money for capital. There's mostly capital.
It'd be like the fire truck fund, the police car fund,
Exactly.
those sort of things. So those, even though they have a parenthesis around them, those are actually assets.
I'm not sure I would think about them as assets. We need to show the budget as being balanced in the way that the town balances its budget is it chooses to consume things that it already had, fund balance cash that it already had. So it's somewhat deceiving when you look at that and you see it as a negative variance.
Right.
But it's because it wasn't a revenue source from an outside party.
It's just unexpended funds that we had assigned.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to do is go through the compliance report, which is the thinner bound document. It's called Reports Required by Government Auditing Standards. And if you flip to page 3, there's a few comments there I wanted to go through. On page 3, there is what's called a significant deficiency in internal controls as it relates to financial reporting. And specifically, this relates to segregation of duties. I think you've all probably heard my spiel on segregation of duties. It's a comment that's probably been here forever, and unfortunately probably will never go away. And it has to do with the small staff size that is here. From an accounting perspective, the town's not able to segregate accounting functions in an ideal manner. And what that means is because they don't necessarily have great segregation of duties, that there's greater risk for the potential of error or for fraud. Not that I'm suggesting either has occurred, but there is a greater risk that could happen. Now there's certain things that can be done to help to lessen that risk. It includes having financial information reviewed by the Board of Selectmen, by the town manager, by the department heads. It includes segregating duties in sensitive areas such as those concerning cash or other liquid assets, which I think the town does fairly well. More than anything, this is a heads up that things are probably not perfect. As I said, I think that the town does do a good job with what it has. But it is inherently risky because you've got your bookkeeper reconciling the bank accounts, preparing and posting journal entries, maintaining the general ledger. In an ideal world, we could give all of those different functions to different employees. This is a comment that probably most, if not 90% of our clients receive. So, are there any questions on that? I know we discussed
Well,
that.
we this comes up every year, obviously, and I think every year I ask the same question. What can we do?
I think you are doing it. I think you are doing it.
I mean, there's really nothing else we can do, but beyond what we are doing.
No, I don't think so.
You'd have to pay somebody separately, basically. No, I mean, I'll say you have to hire somebody. It would cost money to fix the problem, and it's probably not worth the risk, because the risk is pretty minimal. He has to work, because that's his job.
Correct. Yeah, I wish I didn't have to report it, but,
Right, no.
you know. And then the other thing that's here, which is just it's a recommendation, it's something that came up as part of the audit process, relates to payroll-related procedures. When we were looking at payroll disbursements, we noted that employees' wages are approved as part of the budget process during the year. We recommend the use of pay rate approval forms. Those forms would be prepared every year. We would have the employee's salary, it would be signed off by the employee as well as management, and then that form would be put in the employee's personnel file. It would be a trail to know exactly what each and every employee should be paid. I know that this was a comment last year. I know we discussed it last year. I think, unfortunately, the year has come around too quickly based on my conversation with Kurt.
But I did agree this time too. I've asked the deputy treasurer to probably make a form that we can have recorded, put in personnel files, and have employees sign them. So that's what we'll do before your next audit.
And that is it in terms of comments. Actually, that's it in terms of what I have. Is there any other questions?
You didn't find anything, no areas of concern?
No. No, things went very smoothly, as I said. The town had, for, 4 years now, has had what's called a pre-audit. It's another individual, it's not us, it's another individual who comes in.
Also skip the books in perfect order, so he just comes in for a couple of days and it's a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Which saves us money. I'm assuming.
It gets us the work done this time of year rather than in January, so we prefer this.
Things honestly have gotten, there was a lot of, not that there were any issues that were related to the school department, but that obviously made the audit more time consuming. The town would usually expend more than $500,000, so we had to have this separate audit, called a separate compliance audit. So now that the town doesn't have the school department, things have changed. It's a little bit more streamlined now.
Do you still do the school?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda is department head reports, and what is that starting?
Let's see. I'll leave these out first. That'll be my last item. Saturday we had the drug take back. I got an email from DEA. It said total amount for the state was 14,140 pounds of medications that were turned back in. We had 13 people show up, and we ended up with a box full. So probably about 40 pounds would be us. Halloween, I went down and spent with down at the station, they handed out candy, and thanks to the fire department, I ran out quick. I was not expecting that crowd at all. So I had to go borrow some from them. I told the kids to give me back, but I don't know if they listened or not. Last night, I had a staff meeting with all my people. Just sort of a 6-month thing. It's been 6 months since I've been here, and I just wanted to see what we were doing, how could we improve, what we're going to be doing in the future. So we'll go from there. That last thing that was the survey that I had put online. That had been going since the end of September, I believe it was, the middle of September. I was hoping for a better count altogether. I only had 66 respondents, which if you take the population, it's right around 1.5%, maybe, in that area. But, I mean, altogether, I thought I got good grades on the first 4 questions. The 5th one was sort of an open-ended question, about them asking me, if they wanted to tell me something, what would I do? That ran the gamut. That was do more traffic enforcement, do less traffic enforcement. I mean, I got everything. But even out of that, also I got some good comments. So I'll be trying to implement what the suggestions are, and that's basically what I was looking for out of this whole survey. Other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you. Dave?
Hi, good evening. You got my report for the month. Things are going very well. I currently have 4 houses under construction, which is very odd for this time of year, but we have 4 new houses going up, 1 on my desk, ready to permit. So there's we're still in that mode. The Grange, Andre might have some report on the gas for the Grange. We're essentially in a holding pattern until after the election to see if we have the rest of the money before we really step up and continue into the building, because anything we do now would have to get changed if we do get the other grant approved. So we're essentially holding on that. As far as Tech, they haven't called me. I am not sure whether the plan is up and running. I was supposed to get a call, but I haven't gotten one yet, so I don't see anybody from there. So I'll give a report next week. I'll stop there on Friday. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Doug. You notice on the easel I brought in Woody Woods trails. The trails are done, and there'll be two. We have two signs. One will be on the beginning end or end, whatever you want to call it. Little diagram on the bottom shows approximately where the trail loops and what there is on the trail. And hopefully we're going to get those up before winter comes. Speaking of winter, we all got caught quite unexpectedly by that storm this past week. But we had most of our stuff ready, and we survived it all right. But and as I said in my report, 41 years I've never ever done that in October. Very unusual fall storm October. And you have my activity report for last month. And the only other thing I have, I won't be here for the next two meetings. I'm going on vacation on the fall for 3 weeks, so I'll miss the next one in the fall. Thank you.
Will somebody be here in your place?
Roger, take over.
Did you tear up any plow edges or anything on this first fall?
No, we tore up a little saw here and there. That's to be expected.
Yep.
Will you come back if we get too much snow? Andre.
Thank you. First of all, the basic school we've been talking about for the last 2 months is having their last class tonight. We will have the 3 that started, will be graduating. And graduation's on the 20th. It's here at the Control School, and you're all invited to come up. It's going to start at 6 p.m. And I think we have one more selectmen's meeting before that, so I'll give you an update. The building up at Woolworth Estate is going to be the training this weekend. It's an entire weekend of activities for us. We're going to have a classroom party in Green Friday evening, and then Saturday and Sunday we'll be doing the actual burns, and Sunday afternoon we'll burn it to the ground. It's part of the deal we worked out with the landowner. It's an area-wide training. Hopefully there'll be about 10 departments there, and we actually have a chief from New Hampshire coming out to see it. He wants to see how the compressed air foam systems work. He's looking to purchase them once. He's going to spend the weekend with us. The instructor's actually flying in from Wisconsin. He'll be here tomorrow night. As the police chief mentioned, we had Halloween the other night. We counted 425 kids. I'm sure we missed a few because somebody came to the fire station. The rescue was down at the fire station. We had the PD next door, and it was really good to see the downtown area used the way it was. It was a busy day, or a busy night in that area. We didn't have any issues. I don't think you folks had either. It was just a good bunch of people down there. Unfortunately, coming back from a fire call Friday night from Winthrop, we blew out a tire on the oldest truck, on the 88. Those tires are 22, 23 years old, and of course trying to match another tire to it wasn't going to work, so we had to put 4 new tires on it. The good news was we budgeted 4 tires for that truck. We're hoping to wait till spring. Herb is a recipient of the old tires. There's a little bit of life left in them. If he can use them, we decided to send them over there and just give them to the tire manufacturer. So we ended up with 4 new ones, and he ended up with 3.5 good ones, I guess. I think. As for the Grange Hall, the propane's all in, the tanks are connected. As Dave mentioned, they're in a holding pattern on their side before they get the propane running. On our side, it's all connected, and we're actually using the propane from Dead River. The JNS oil tank has been removed, and that's been completed. They'll also be hooking up our new boiler, which is ready to be fired up next week. The factory rep's coming up for that. The highway department is completed. Their new propane tank is in. JNS oil is coming Friday, isn't it? Yeah, Friday. Yeah. They'll get rid of that tank, and then all that will be left is the transfer station. and we're gonna get that one transferred out hopefully shortly. The generator's been connected, so they have standby power, they can actually feed into that building. The electrician finished that last week, so that part of the program's all done. So that's all good news, we're getting close to the end on that.
The tank's been dug out of the ground over there?
Tank's
I thought you
been-
had an underground tank over there.
Oh, that was taken out of the ground quite a while ago, back in August.
Okay.
Highway department came up and pulled it out for us and disposed of that. That hole's all filled.
There was no leakage problems or anything?
No, we had, DEP was there, we did all the forms, we have that on file, so if there's ever any questions, we have pictures. And we actually have a gentleman who works with DEP for the state that's on the fire department, so he helped us with all the minutia, get all that done correctly.
Yeah, it's quite a lot to
It
it.
is quite a lot, it was surprising, but yeah, that's been completed. Last two things, the state of Maine last year decided that we had to learn how to drive fire trucks. So we are now in the process of, I just got the packet for the classroom part. It's about 10 hours of classroom time and driving, and going up and driving a course with fire trucks, and then we have to take each person out in each fire truck and drive one course and make sure they know how to operate the truck. It's required by March next year. It all comes under the fact that a firefighter in Sullivan, Maine crashed 4 or 5 years ago and he wasn't properly trained. So we have to do the entire department. It's not just us, the whole state of Maine that has to do this. So we've been proactive in the fact that as a group, we've sent about 10 guys to learn how to become trainers. And they're going to organize a class, get everything put together. We actually have a meeting tomorrow night and getting that started. So between now and the end of March, we're going to have get that done.
Where do you have to do that?
The classroom part of us we're going to do down here. The course, we're going to use the high school because the bus drivers use a very similar obstacle course, and it's fairly well marked out. As a group, we need to come up with 150 traffic cones. So we're actually putting an item together, who's got what for equipment, so we can do that. And it's going to take several Saturdays to get it done. The good news on the course is you pick one truck and everybody drives the same truck for your department. On the vehicles, we actually need to take all 5 vehicles out with one person and make sure they know how to drive it and put it in pump gear and all that. It's something we already do, it's already documented, but not on their form. We have to go through their form and do it now. So the Bureau of Labor Standards, one of the challenging parts. Lastly, was at the station today and a few of the juniors were there and wanted to know what I was doing tonight. I told them I was coming to the Selectmen's Meeting, and I asked them if they'd like to come and see what it's all about. They're more than welcome to come. And they took me up on the offer. So we have 3 of our juniors here tonight. The one on the end is J.D. Gambino, Spencer Weber-Wing, and Ryan Dakin. These are all juniors. They've been on the department for a year or so. They have to do all the training we do, attend all the meetings we do, and they get an extra training every month. Last Wednesday, they went up to the burn building and did their own training up there with some of the adults. And tomorrow night, they'll also have another training that they do. So they're very active. They do a great job. They passed out a bunch of candy the other night. And they help us out quite a bit. So they've come for the meeting.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for being part of the department.
Thank you.
Kurt?
Yeah, you mentioned fireworks?
I don't know when you want to bring it up. Do it now?
Yeah, why not?
Sure. A few months ago, we talked a little bit about fireworks, and the law is coming into effect the first of the year. We've actually had, the departments have kind of talked about it, and as a fire chief, I don't support the idea of having fireworks, but in the real world, it would be very difficult to enforce the non-use of fireworks. I don't know how he would do it, to be honest, and the police department would do it. It is a state law that will be in effect January 1st, as I mentioned, and I don't think we should actually try to ban the sale of fireworks in this town. Dave and I actually sat with a gentleman looking to buy a building in town and sell fireworks. The law on how to do that is very stringent. It's not as easy as just putting up a roadside truck and trying to sell it. You actually have to have a fixed facility. That's all you can do in that facility. I think it would be very difficult for a business to really make a go of it the way they've written the law. But in my opinion, and I think the other public safety people, again, we don't like the idea, but I don't think we should fight the flow of selling fireworks or actually using fireworks in town.
One question about if, just so people understand it, there's also a responsibility if you use fireworks and set up, it starts a fire, are you responsible for the damage that might cause? Or Is there anything in the law or anything in general law that addresses that? Or-
I'm not sure about the actual law for fireworks usage. If we received a call for a fireworks accident, we'd respond. Most likely, the insurance company's going to come after you. Someone is going to find it litigating. You know, that may be an idea if we want to do a new ordinance. If you have an accident, you start a fire, you'll be responsible for the mitigation of that incident. That's probably not a bad idea. It's a different way of attacking the problem. I think there will be problems out of it, without a doubt. I know some of the large municipalities are banning it because of the close urban areas and you know, how the usage is going to be. Right now, Lewiston just passed a ban on it. Portland has. Augusta, I think, is talking about it tonight or tomorrow night. Most of the bigger municipalities have done it. But I don't know how we can enforce it down here. With all the lake property and all the camps in the summer, it certainly would be a challenge that would be almost unattainable. They're outlawed now and we still have the problem.
It might be good for us to use the coming year to document what we do have for problems, if there are. You know, develop some kind of record-keeping system so that a year from now, we can sit here and say, okay, we had 28 complaints or 1. You know, and oftentimes we use, we call it stories in complaints, but not really a record. So we can keep track of any problems we do have, whether it's a fire or a noise complaint. I personally not planning to rush out and buy fireworks just because it's a law. You always could go to New Hampshire. And the departments really enforce this at its extreme. So I don't think anybody in town is going to run out and grab fireworks.
Well, Andre, I did email a copy of a synopsis of the law to safety board members and to the town manager. If you didn't get that, he should have it, he can follow.
I didn't get it. I didn't read the part, if there was any part that Carol mentioned, if there's
There, as far as because I actually read the complete law. As far as I know, there's no, as far as I can remember, there's nothing in it about consequences.
So losing fingers.
I received an email from a lady named Marcia Arnold just today. It's